What is going on? Welcome back to Off the Schneid. It's Wednesday. You know, we're drafting. Hope everyone's doing well out in fantasy football land. So we're drafting tonight, but we got a very, very, very special guest. I've been watching the channel a fair amount these days, jumped on a stream or two, jumped in a draft or two. You guys all know, I'm sure, Pat from Fantasy Dog Pound. But just in case some of my subscribers, my followers don't know who you are, give yourself a shout out and a little plug.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So basically been doing the YouTube thing for a year, been playing fantasy football for 16 years, and we're just really trying to grow a community around best ball. Doing a 24-hour live stream pretty soon, hopefully, if we hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'm looking forward to it. I know, did you do one this year?
No, God, no, I'm not. God, no, I'm not doing that. But maybe if you need someone to come on and chew up some time, I'll come help you out. As long as it's not at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., some nonsense like that. But no, I'm not that much of a grinder. That's true grinder status right on there.
But I'm nearing 600 underdog drafts this year, and last year I capped out at 470, something like that. And most of them, I did 400 cash games. So I was mostly a cash game player last season. And then I did 167 tournament drafts and ended up with like a 36% advance rate. So just making the full change to tournament drafts this season.
That's how you pad the bankroll is those cash games and just, tons of, and especially if you're getting into the higher stake stuff, that's something that I, planned on doing, but I haven't been. There's just so many tournaments. Like they just opened 2 more puppies just a few hours ago as soon as the poodle filled.
Yeah.
So it's wild in the streets. But let's jump into this. I can't stress enough. Go follow Pat. Go follow the Fantasy Dog Pound. It's very, very entertaining stuff on the YouTube verse, and the Twitter machine's always good as well. So go follow Pat and tune in to his shows. A little more popular than mine, but we'll get there.
Hell yeah. You're grinding, bro. You're grinding.
So we'll get into this starting content here, a little ADP Fallers talk before we get into a draft. I want to respect your time. I know it's we got a hard deadline, so we'll get through this and do a quick draft. But I want to jump into this quick and talk about some fallers come training camp, guys that we think are going to fall once camp opens in about 2 weeks, something like that. Here, first on the list, this is a guy you brought to the table, Tony Pollard. Go ahead and tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things going on here, right? We don't have a lot of news right now with this information lull this time of season, who's practicing, who hasn't practiced. And Tony Pollard's one of those guys that his injury is really not being brought up. Sure, he's been a riser right now because they haven't added anyone in the backfield. Zeke's gone, so it looks like Pollard's the clear number 1. Is there still time for them to bring someone in here? Is Malik Davis going to be the number 2? But the most important thing is, what's his health status? And I think with some negative reports, if he doesn't get on the field soon, you will see him start to slip.
I think he should be slipping anyways, but you're totally right. No one's really talking about it. It's a broken fucking leg. It's not like it was like, a torn whatever. It was a major injury. So no one's talking about that. And I find it hard to believe that he's just going to, take on some workhorse workload and just carry the rock, 300 times, 350 touches, something like that. It's just not going to happen. That's not even where he makes his hay. He's 12 to 14 touches. Maybe you can get him up to 16 touches, but for the guys that are going around him, I find it tough to click Tony Pollard's name personally.
He's that change of pace roll back, right? That's where he succeeded. And you saw when you give him more carries, he ends up getting hurt. Will it happen again? No one knows, but now he's starting the season with an injury. It's a little rich at pick 21 when maybe you can just wait a little bit if you want someone with injury risk and go Breece Hall.
Yeah. And that's the guy we're going to talk about in a couple seconds here, but he might be, the best change of pace back in the league. I'll give him that. But at the end of the day, he's still, a bit of a change of pace back. He's not carrying the ball 20 plus times a game. It's just not going to happen. Right. He's not built for it. So I agree with that 100%. I think he should have been falling all summer. I'm not clicking his name a ton, and here we are. We'll see what happens once training camp opens here.
Now I ask, do you like that Dallas-Detroit game? Week 17 for tournament play, where I know cash games, you're going to pick the guy who provides the most value, and you're not really worried as much about correlation. But 1 week ceiling game against Detroit, week 17 dome game. Do you like that game?
I do, but I do like the Dallas side a lot more. I'm bringing it back with Detroit. I'm not stacking Detroit, bringing back with Dallas, right?
Okay.
Because it's in a dome, and I talked about this last week where Brandon Cooks could be that Mike Evans from last year, week 17, mediocre all year, and then week 17 rolls around, he's 150 yards, 3 touchdowns, wins somebody $3 million. So I think that's entirely possible for someone on Dallas. Could be Tony Pollard, absolutely, but you got to get there first. So we'll see. We'll see. You got to win, one of 16 twice to get there. So we'll see what happens if you got Tony Pollard on your team. But let's move on to the next guy, Josh Jacobs, RB10, ADP 28.1. For me, this is a guy that almost 400 touches last year. Even if he does report, he does sign his franchise tag, we're at 5 days away. 5 days away for him to sign that tag. And we'll see what happens. But I personally think we could see him sit out a little bit. And even with if he does, start day one in training camp, with all those touches, that's pretty, prone for injury the following season. So we'll see what happens. A fun fact I always like to throw out about Josh Jacobs: the dude's never had a receiving touchdown in his career.
Which is interesting because he catches quite amount of balls, right? Every season.
160 in his career. It's 107 the last 2 seasons. 160 in his career, never had a receiving touchdown.
Yeah. Maybe maybe that's attributed to the offense. But Jacobs is one of those players that he's already fallen a little bit because of this contract. Negotiations are going on. I think, like you said, like if he continues to hold out, and there's a possibility that he holds out, he's sent it out on Twitter personally saying, like, I'm going to do this for the ones that come after me, like the rookies behind him and the people that are fighting for negotiations behind him. That is a clear sign, like, hey, I'm willing to sit out, but how much of this is just smokescreen from him trying to get a deal done? So you have to kind of read between the lines. I am still selecting him when he falls to 32, 33, 34, basically after Ramondre's gone. And he goes at 26, a little bit before him. But if DK Metcalf's on the board, I'm going DK. If Mark Andrews is on the board, I'm typically clicking Mark Andrews. The next pick's Breece Hall and Calvin Ridley and Amari Cooper. So it starts to get into a range where if I already have 2 receivers, do I really want to take a risk on Calvin Ridley? I mean, this is a player that has not the same type of risk, but definitely does have risk, not playing football for a year and a half. Amari Cooper, Lamar Jackson's an easy click for me right there, but then Debo and Keenan Allen's been steamed up. So you do get into this range where there are some players with some risk and what's basically your risk limit. And when he gets to pick 32, I'm like, I don't mind clicking him there. I'm mixing him in. I don't want to be overweight, but I'm fine with the 4 or 5% Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, right. It's a bit of a dead zone right around there. And that's why I think that Keenan Allen is getting steamed up to that point, is because no one wants to click Debo, Amari, Josh Jacobs, Breece Hall. No one wants to click those names. So they just reach a little bit and go, same thing with Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is getting steamed up as well for similar reasons. But you're right about the Josh Jacobs saying that himself. There's a lot of words being put in Saquon Barkley's mouth. He's not the one saying a lot of these things about sitting out and things like that. They're just saying, the media is saying it for him. Josh Jacobs is saying the shit for himself. So that's a big difference in the franchise tag talk between those two players.
I personally think Barkley has a better chance of getting a contract than Jacobs before the start of the season. But like we saw kind of the treatment Jacobs got last season leading up to the season, and just like the talks about Amir Abdullah, Zamir White. Now, Zamir White is someone that could be a mega riser if Josh Jacobs continues to talk this way and a deal doesn't get done, which we'll see.
My Zamir White exposure is hefty to say the least.
Good.
But yeah, no, Josh Jacobs not a huge favorite of mine, so I'm avoiding him. But the next guy we're going to talk about quickly, Breece Hall, RB11, ADP 31.4. What's your thoughts on Breece? Same ranges.
Yeah, I mean,
Jacobs.
You have him here as a faller. I think there is a story you could tell yourself that he does end up falling, maybe with some more negative news that, he's not practicing, maybe he's behind. So there is room for him to fall. I don't know how much. Like, can we see him fall behind pick 38, which is where Najee Harris goes and where Gibbs goes? Perhaps, but this is a player that you're really picking him for the end of the season. And I base all my takes based off of like tournament play. So I'm thinking about the end of the season and you're already getting a discount on him with the injury. Yes, I think he can fall more, but at some point, I guess I have more risk tolerance with my portfolio. So I am more willing to click a Breece Hall. I am more willing to click a Josh Jacobs, especially when they fall after ADP, because you're already getting a discount on them, but they could definitely fall further.
My biggest concern with Breece Hall is if Dalvin Cook signs there, which is a lot of signs are pointing towards that. And if that happens, that absolutely kills Breece Hall's value, especially at this ADP. And then, it does hurt Dalvin Cook's value as well, but not as much because he's at 80, pick 80 or something like that.
Same thing with Stevenson though, right? Like there's risk that he goes to New England. There's risk that he goes to Miami, wherever he goes. Yeah, wherever he goes, he's going to hurt the starter. I think Miami's really the only place that I actually like Dalvin. Like, I think that's the one place that Dalvin could be a riser at his current ADP.
Denver?
Miami.
No, what about Denver?
Denver's interesting. Again, end of the season, if we expect Javonte Williams to be healthy, what does that split look like? So I'm more worried about, the last 3 games mainly for tournament play. Do I want Dalvin splitting with Javonte? It's not the sexiest place in my opinion.
Honestly, my biggest thing with these ACL guys is I've just throughout my entire life of fantasy football, I've avoided the year after ACL tears. Worked out for me with Dalvin Cook, worked out for me with Saquon Barkley. I just avoid them completely. I will pick Breece Hall if his ADP falls and Dalvin Cook doesn't sign there. I will pick Breece Hall, but I will not be picking Javonte Williams. His knee just got destroyed.
I agree. And right now, Breece Hall, it's a good time to really not be drafting him because right now you are assuming more risk by drafting him. So I don't think you have to assume that risk. If we do get some positive reports that he's practicing, he doesn't move really too far up. So does he move ahead of Mark Andrews, ahead of DK? Like I really don't even think he goes that far. But Josh Jacobs and him could switch places with negative news like we talked about. Ramondre Stevenson, if Dalvin goes to New England, he'd definitely be going after Breece. But it's definitely interesting. We got to keep up with the news.
Definitely. We'll get some news probably on the 17th or 18th-ish. That'll definitely give us a little bit of clarity with, at least the Saquon and Josh Jacobs info, and that could lead to some more stuff with some of these other guys, some of these free agents. Let's move on to tight end. Kyle Pitts. This is a guy you brought to the table, tight end 5, ADP 70.3. He was around that George Kittle range to start the season, and he's fallen a little bit. And what's your take on Kyle Pitts right now?
Yeah, all these tight ends have really fallen from their starting ADP. Hawkinson falling around 8 picks, Kittle falling around 10 to 12 picks, and Pitts also falling 8 picks. So you are seeing the middle range tight ends fall right now, which is nice because I was not drafting these tight ends early in the season when other people were like, I really love Hawkinson here. And it just didn't really feel right to me when you had those elite wide receivers going in that range. Now that those elite wide receivers are ahead of Hawkinson, including Brandon Ayuk, now I'm clicking Hawkinson. Now I'm clicking Kittle. Pitts, we haven't heard too much of an update. He hasn't practiced. He didn't practice in OTAs. So I want an injury update, really, before I click Pitts. I think this is very similar to Breece Hall, where we are assuming risk by drafting right now because no one's talking about the injury. So if he is healthy, he is on track to start week 1. I don't think his ADP rises at all. But if he is hurt, he definitely has room to fall. Yeah,
especially obviously with the position. Plus, he had some college injuries as well. So there's injury history there, just not at the NFL level. I agree. I was clicking him a little bit here and there. I'm certainly holding off now, unless, correlation calls for it or whatever. But yeah, I think we need to see him on the field practicing, playing preseason games, all that kind of stuff. So if he opens camp on the, the pup, then that's going to be, detrimental for his ADP, which I'm fine with as well. So we'll see how that works out. Next running back, DeAndre Swift, RB 23, ADP 78.3. Really, it just boils down to it's a three-headed backfield in Philadelphia. Yeah, we're going to want some exposure to this backfield, but who is it? Is it Penny? Is it Gainwell? I've been drafting a crazy amount of Kenny Gainwell just because he's the cheapest and they seem to like him. They gave him the ball in the playoffs last year. I've always liked Kenny Gainwell. That's who I'm drafting in this backfield personally. But what's your take on DeAndre Swift?
So I've been siding with Penny in half-point PPR. I want the goal line back. I want the guy who can break a long run. Swift, it's interesting, right? Like Jalen Hurts, he doesn't typically pass the ball to the RBs. So that's kind of my thing with Gainwell too. I don't really love Gainwell. And I think Penny, if you're drafting Penny, you're taking a strong stance on the running back field. So like I don't have a ton of Swift right now. So I don't really mind that take that he'll be a faller, but this is a top 3 O-line. We expect that again this season. They provide a ton of points, a ton of upside. It's just his role is unknown. And with Gainwell too, like, yeah, they used him in the playoffs. He looked good, but they bring in 2 RBs this offseason. For me, that's kind of just a sign that we don't have full faith in him. Is that wrong? Is it right? I guess we'll find out, but I have been fading Gainwell as well. I've been making my strong stance on Penny.
I hear that. I mean, but it's under $1 million for Rashad Penny and literally nothing for DeAndre Swift in a trade. So, it's not like either of these guys, cost any amount of capital whatsoever to this team.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with the offensive line. And we saw Boston Scott, tiny little 5'8" Boston Scott, getting goal line carries. Yeah.
The Giants killer.
So I'm not too concerned about, if they're looking for a power back. Plus Penny and Swift have shown their career they can't stay healthy. So I don't know. That's my kind of take on it. And that's why I'm drafting so much Gainwell. Plus he's got a good bye week
everyone's going to have a different narrative with this backfield. And I don't think it's wrong to mix in different players in different ranges, but I agree. I'm not really clicking Swift right now because I think if we do get positive news about Penny or about Gainwell, you could see Swift fall. And like I said, doesn't really check down to the RBs. So it's a little less sexy of a pick for me in half PPR.
Yeah. Whoever starts camp with the first team offense, that guy's going to rise. And that's how it's going to go. Right. Different position here. We're going to move on to quarterback. This is a guy that I've just never been high on. I was, in the big board pre-draft, things like that. I love Anthony Richardson. Don't get me wrong. We're talking dynasty football. I'm all about Anthony Richardson, but as a rookie, QB 11, ADP 102, you're kidding me. Like, you are kidding me. I am not clicking. I actually have. I clicked his name once or twice.
There it is.
Because I don't really fade anybody realistically. There's a couple guys, that I haven't clicked once, but I have clicked a little bit of Anthony Richardson in three QB builds. But for where he's going, you just can't tell me that he's going to outscore guys like Danny Dimes, Dak Prescott, right? Geno Smith, all these guys that are going around him are 300-point quarterbacks. Right. And that's basically what we're saying that Anthony Richardson's kind of floor is, if he's going around in that range. Kirk Cousins, Tua, all these guys, Aaron Rodgers going after Anthony Richardson as a rookie. And, fresh news coming out that he might not even start the year as the, QB1. I get that we're drafting for the end of the season. I agree with all that. But, man, I just can't be clicking his name unless he falls. I will. Like I said, I have already, and I will. I just want him to fall before I start clicking his name.
Yeah, and also Daniel Jones has fallen, but now he's been a recent riser. I don't know if that has to do with Waller actually practicing and people seeing him throw him the ball. But like you said, like Daniel Jones, 7 QB1 finishes last year at 16 starts. 3 were in the top 3 scoring. So he has that rushing ceiling where he can spike in as a top 3 QB. He did it 3 times last year. Geno did it twice, and he had 10 QB1 finishes. I mean, even Goff had 6 top 12 finishes out of 17 starts last year. So the QBs are going after them. I guess it's how much do you kind of value that rushing ceiling and that dream of will he be running for his life this season? A-Rich, is Alec Pierce really even, is he polished enough to be a deep shot guy? I know Pittman can be a true number one, but he does need help around him. Is Jonathan Taylor going to stay healthy? It's really going to depend on the amount of red zone trips this team can make for A-Rich at this ADP. It has to be a lot. I don't love him at 102. I would prefer him behind Daniel Jones. I have been mixing him in, but he has been a common faller too. Like if you're in the draft rooms, you can definitely get him at 107, 108 pretty regularly. He's not someone that's being reached upon because he has been a steady faller as of late. So I think you're right with this trend.
Yeah, and if he falls to like right where you have him behind Danny Dimes at QB 15, 14, 15, the mid-teens, I can stomach that. I can get on board with clicking his name a little more, but as it sits right now, and like I said, and like you kind of alluded to, as he does fall past ADP, I'll click him here and there, but I'm certainly not drafting him at or ahead of ADP. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I think he's interesting on those teams that maybe you start T. Higgins and Chase, and you're like, all right, this is gonna be a Joe Burrow team. Joe Burrow gets sniped. All right. And then you have another, maybe your next pick's like someone on an offense that would go relatively early, or maybe it's like a running back like Stevenson, and you're struggling to find correlation with the QB. That's where A-Rich comes into play. That's where Daniel Jones comes into play on those teams too.
Agree. Last guy we got here, Devin Achane, RB39, ADP 118. To me, this is madness as well. You know, they basically said that Mostert is kind of the starter there from last year. And then Jeff Wilson has outscored Mostert in 5 of 7 games they played together, even though Mostert was the starter. So for me, Jeff Wilson's the click on this team, unless we get some Dalvin Cook news. But rookie Devin Achane, I don't mind as a change of pace guy. I love him as a player, but you just can't convince me that he's going to outscore those 2 other running backs and on his own team. And then the guys that are going around him and after, Damian Harris, the touchdown upside with Damian Harris, even Brian Robinson. I have a hard time clicking A-Chain, but what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts go back to Tua. When I see A-Chain, I see an RB that's 5'9", and I see a QB that has concussion problems. This isn't a guy that I think you're going to see a lot in obvious passing downs. You need someone that's going to be able to be a pretty good pass blocker. So 5'9", that could limit him, in my opinion. So if he's not getting out there on those high-priced third down and long plays, it's a little less sexy. You have the Dalvin Cook news looming. I have Dalvin projected for Miami. I'm starting to draft that way, and I'm still sort of hedging that bet with a late Jeff Wilson, because I do think he is the best value pick for Miami running backs. And guess what? If Dalvin goes to Miami, you're not really losing a whole lot by losing that 17th round pick and selecting Jeff Wilson. The upside's much higher.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, if they don't sign Dalvin Cook, then it's going to be Jeff Wilson for me, and he's the best value. So it's pretty easy to click Jeff Wilson. But we're going to jump into a BBM. Little BBM draft. Hopefully it fills at a reasonable pace, because this puppy, the slow and fast puppies, just opened a few.
I'll get some sickos in here. Don't worry.
An hour ago or so. Let's do it. Only 3. Only waiting on 3.
Oh yeah.
So we'll be all right. We'll be all right. But let's see. I just a fair warning for you. I've been like mid pick for the last. I did 20 poodles, and I swear I was 5 through 9 in every single poodle. 3.
Interesting.
So prepare to be picking probably 6th.
That's fine. Dude, honestly, I've sort of grown to love every position now. I don't really have a position that I hate, especially with the falling Tyreek Hill. Gladly take Hill at 5. Gladly take Hill at 6, at 7. Give me Hill anywhere. I'm assuming the risk there with the lawsuit or whatever is looming his way, but this shit takes time.
I'm not too worried about him smacking a guy in the back of the head because he was being an idiot or something. Who knows? Right. Like, I'm really not concerned with some huge just suspension coming Tyreek Hill's way. If I'm being honest, they'll slap him with a bit of a fine. So I 100% agree. I'm gobbling up all the cheaper Tyreek shares.
Because now we're getting closer to the start of the big board, where Tyreek Hill started at 7 or 8, and I ended up with a disgusting amount of Tyreek Hill on the big board because I was drafting him anywhere from 3+.
I didn't have enough personally. Any names you recognize here? I actually don't really recognize any names in this, which means it could be pretty wild.
Really good. This could be really good. Who's on the back end?
No badges.
Oh, Candyman. Candyman in the live stream. Shout out to Fantasy Football Garage. Chris, what's going on, my dude?
There we go. There we go. So we got one. We got one. Some of these rooms can get interesting, to say the least. And here we are, pick 8. I told you we'd be 5 to 9, something like that. But you're right. There's something you can do with every draft spot. There's always a direction you can go, and I agree. I've grown to be okay with it. Doesn't really matter.
I think the only player I'm soft fading in the first round is really Kelsey, and even Eckler might be a soft fade now because I was scooping that pick earlier into BBM where he was going at like 10, 11 religiously. Okay. But now if you go Eckler now at 7, you're hoping to pretty much get Waddle on the way back around. I don't really love that start as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. When he was going at the 1-2 turn, that was just insane value for Eckler. Yeah. So I've got a ton of exposure at this point, but wow, this is already getting wild.
He finished as the number 1 flex last season. Like he was number 1 over Justin Jefferson. He was a number 1 point scorer and half-point PPR, and he didn't even have 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah, touchdown guy.
Oh,
there he goes.
Give us Hill at 8.
Man, that would be unreal. Go Kelsey. Yeah. What are your thoughts here? I don't mind Brown, CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, any of them. Whatever your favorite pick is, we'll go with it.
We'll just
build around it.
Let's do CeeDee.
Interesting stat about CeeDee. He had more wide receiver 1 finishes than AJ Brown last year, and he also had, if not more, matching top 3 finishes. So he also showed that ceiling too, which he's really not that player that you think of when you think of ceiling. Like AJ Brown, you think of like nice ceiling play. But yeah, I was very surprised when I deep dove into CeeDee Lamb's stats for last year. And it's a team that loses Schultz, obvious red zone target, and that has to go somewhere. So
yeah, the loss of Kellen Moore hurts, don't get me wrong, but yeah, you're like CeeDee Lamb had the quietest 1,350 yards, 9 touchdowns you could ever imagine. So yeah, I still love CeeDee. I think he hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. I think he could certainly have an even better season this year. And with, like you said, with Schultz gone. So, and they're going to have to throw the ball at the end of the day. Sure, they want to run more. I get that, but they're still going to have to throw the ball, and he's going to be the benefactor of that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get Amon-Ra for the bring back, but we'll see what happens.
And interesting about right now where D-Hop still hasn't signed anywhere and we're trying to make projections. I think it's interesting to do the start where it's like Diggs, maybe you bring in, like, you reach for Ramondre, and then you bring in Allen, and you can do this from the 5 spot pretty easily. Mm-hmm. You bring in Ramondre, so that's a slight reach, and then Josh Allen. You can go Waddle here.
Waddle?
This is cool. This is a cool pick. Barkley's going to fall a little bit, so we can wait on that to even scoop some later Barkley, even though I think it's fine. Why not just get him later with another draft if you're doing multiple? But I think it's an interesting start if we can start to project if D-Hop were to go to the Bills and you have that Diggs, Ramondre, Josh Allen, D-Hop start. You have your double stack and bring back for week 17, something that you're probably not going to be able to get if he does end up in Buffalo. And Buffalo's looking at like around 5.3 million in cap space. So not a lot to work with. So it's really going to depend. D-Hop, do you want to make a run for the playoffs, or do you want to get paid and, be catching balls from Mac Jones?
Yeah, it sounds like Buffalo's not going to be the landing spot. I think he's just putting pressure on him, but he couldn't end up with the Patriots. And then there's it's a double bring back, and it's not as amazing as you'd like, but there's nothing wrong with that. Right? Yeah, exactly. You're covering your bases there, which I know a lot of people are doing. I'm sure you're doing. But yeah, it's not, in all honesty, like there's no real reach in the first round. Like taking Diggs at the 5 hole, 4 hole.
That's
it
fun.
Doesn't, it's not.
I've taken AJ Brown there and getting Devonta Smith and then Jalen Hurts to fall. We've gotten that double. So you can do some things in the first and second round to get unique too. You can go Lamb Pollard, make a slight reach on Pollard. Now we talked about Pollard being a faller. So is there potential to get him in the third round later? Potentially depends on the news with that injury.
But another thing that keeps coming out is right now, mid-July has been the point in time where drafts win, big tournaments like BBM4, the regular season points last year. All those teams were drafted mid-July, right before training camp opens. So you got to take your shots at the end of the day is what I'm getting at. You got to take your stands, to have your player takes and draft as if you're right, and then live by the sword, die by the sword. It is what it is.
Big time. Big time. Yeah. July's an important month for drafting, but like you said, let's try to make these projections, let potential landing spots, draft around narratives. And that's basically all you can do. Like you said, draft like you're right. Super important. There was a talk in the Discord the other day and someone said like, oh, I had Lamar and Pickett. I should have went a third QB in case Lamar gets hurt. If Lamar gets hurt, your team's dead. Yeah. And that's just the way you have to draft. You have plenty of capital with just Lamar and Pickett. And that should be the way of thinking. Other teams are going to have Lamar and Pickett week 17, and then they're going to have an extra positional player on you, thus providing, another player that can spike into the lineup, which is a huge advantage.
What are your thoughts here? Mark Andrews or?
I like Mark Andrews for the Baltimore week 17 bring back. Yeah. And maybe we get a falling Lamar.
Always possible. So I don't mind doing that. In the worst case scenario, have that little mini stack there. But yeah, that's exactly it. Like I had that actually similar conversation to that about Christian McCaffrey in last week's show. A guy in the chat was, concerned about, it was basically like a hero RB build with CMC. I don't really care. Like you said, if CMC gets injured, if Lamar Jackson gets injured, your team's dead anyways. No 17th round QB or running back is going to save your team. So when you draft whatever it is, running back or quarterback, typically, or even tight end, if you draft those players that early and you spend that capital on those guys and they get hurt, you're fucked anyways. Your team's dead, and it is what it is. Hopefully you drafted more than one team, but you got to draft like you're right.
It's a min cash way of thinking. And we're not trying to min cash in deep field tournaments where your chances are already so slim of making a playoff run and then trying to hit it all at the end. You have to maximize your upside as much as possible. And that's where if you want to play cash games, I think that might be fine in cash games, but not in tournaments, not in deep field tournaments.
And if you're that, adverse for risk, then don't draft Kenny Pickett so late. Draft another quarterback, right? Like if that's the way you want to go about it, you're not picking 3 quarterbacks. Period. If you draft Lamar Jackson or you draft any quarterback in the first 5 rounds, you're not drafting 3 quarterbacks. Period. So if you're worried about risk and injuries, then draft your second quarterback earlier. That's all you got to do there. So that's the way I look at it. But I'm not doing any of those things. If I draft a quarterback early, I'm probably not drafting another one too early. Do you want to go mini stack Jahmyr Gibbs or another wide receiver? What are your thoughts here?
I like pushing a wide receiver in this range personally. Drake London or McLaurin.
Yeah. I love Drake London this year.
Drake London, like you can make a bet that maybe Kyle Pitts is behind or, it's difficult with this offense for me personally. I think Drake London personally could go a little later, but when we look at the choices we have right now, you know what I mean? You kind of have to, this is one of those places in the draft where I think drafters are getting stuck based off of ADP, which it's okay. Drake London has the upside to command targets, but can he do it with Pitts on the field? And will this team throw the ball more? I sure hope so.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't disagree with that. And I really do like the Atlanta Falcons playoff schedule. So that's a big reason why I'm taking Drake London. I love him as a player and he's got all the upside in the world. So, even if he is just the red zone guy, which he very well could be even with Kyle Pitts on the field. So I don't hate that. 120 targets, I think, last year. And I think he missed a game or two. Plus their, propensity to run the ball a ton. I'm okay with Drake London, like you said, especially in this range. Often hurt Mike Williams.
Yeah.
At this point, often hurt Duke Hopkins, who doesn't even play on a football team right now.
For sure.
Christian Kirk just got a bunch of competition. Terry McLaurin, there's 3 decent wide receivers on that team with a unproven quarterback. DJ Moore, you're right.
They all have their risk. I think DJ Moore and Ayuk and London really stick out to me in this range. I had Ayuk when he was going to pick 61 as a riser to the pick 49 range. And it happened relatively quickly after we dropped that guide. I don't know if it was the Pounders that brought him down so fast, but he flew down the board. And so did Deontay Johnson, which I think's a better cash game play in my opinion. But
I don't disagree. I think Deontay Johnson's he's risen too high at this point. I still love George Pickens, especially like you said, for these big tournaments, spike week type of stuff. I think George Pickens could have bigger spike weeks for sure than Deontay Johnson. Didn't even catch a touchdown pass last year.
Yeah, which is fine. We expect him to get one this year, but he didn't have a game over 15 points.
Hard to do that when you don't have a touchdown, right?
Touchdown or not, though. See, Fields would have been interesting with this comp too, going a little bring back for London.
Yeah.
Now I would be really trying to target Tua or with Dak Prescott. So with that in mind, just sort of keeping that in the back of our head, maybe we target we could go. I love Ayuk.
I don't mind that. I mean,
I can't get enough Ayuk.
I kind of love it. Our bye weeks are fantastic with that, and it's not like we're trying to do it. It's just kind of happens. So I'm more than all right with Ayuk,
and I'm okay. I do a lot of hero running back builds, especially early in the off season around this time, because it's not going to be possible. Once you have more information, those RBs start to rise, and it becomes a lot tougher to do 0 RB. It becomes you just have less upside now with more news. Sure. Those teams average more points, but I think right now is the best time to be doing 0 RB builds. And if we do like a David Montgomery in that range, our first RB on this team, David Montgomery to bring back in the Dallas game, that'd be a pretty ideal start for this team.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I love Rachaad White. We're talking about a little bit pre-show. I think I like Rachaad White as well in a 0 RB build. I think there's every possibility in the world Rachaad White catches 100 balls this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we'll see, but I think that possibility is on the table.
I definitely have James Conner on an island of his own later as well.
The Davis Pang Island?
Probably even better, but not like I love his exposure to James Conner. I can never do that because with one bad game, week 17, 43% of your teams are dead. Not dead, but it doesn't help because, I mean, it's not like he's free. He still costs you, a 7th or 8th round pick. But he finished in his last 8 games of the season, RB21, RB4, RB13, 5, 8, 13, 6, and 17. He didn't have a finish worse than an RB2 his last 8 games of the year, and look where you're getting him.
I don't mind Miles Sanders in this range. I don't know how you feel about him. Hollywood Brown is a relatively easy click here.
I'm probably clicking another receiver, in my opinion. I like Lockett better than Brown.
Okay.
But that's just a bet on the offense.
Let's go Lockett. I don't have quite enough exposure there. So I like Dotson in this range as well. Big Jahan Dotson guy.
Definitely. And he would be a nice bring back too for the San Fran game.
Yeah.
But we can do a bring back as a running back with a Washington RB too.
Yeah, I don't even mind Curtis Samuel late, to be honest. I know a lot of people don't for God knows why. He was almost 150 point wide receiver last year, gets a lot of carries,
spike week type guy, perfect for best ball.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be this is going to be 7 wide receivers max, this type build.
With this start, yeah, absolutely.
And 2 tight ends, probably.
Yeah. Yep. Could still get away potentially with 2 quarterbacks if we go Dak, double tap Dak to him, maybe. We'll see if that happens or works out.
Yeah, I'd love to probably double tap RB in this next range. Get one of Tua and one of Tua or Dak, and then we can pair it with Geno. We could pair it with Purdy. We could pair it with Ritter. We have so many options at QB with this type of build. We can bring in a late Algier. You can bring in your favorite player in A-Chain we covered earlier, who we think could fall. But there's a lot of room for correlation with the start too.
Yeah, if I'm taking Tua and I'm stacking it that way with my quarterback, I'm not taking Jeff Wilson. I am taking Devin A-Chain. It just makes sense. But it's pretty rare. I actually don't have enough exposure to Tua just because there's only basically Tyreek and Waddle, unless you want to be picking Durham, Smythe. But then A-Chain's that other guy that you can bring in for a double stack with Tua, which, you know, considering like we just mentioned my hatred of the Devin A-Chain ADP, it's tough to click if I'm being honest. But
I'd be looking. I don't think Sanders is going to make it back to us, but I'd be looking at Montgomery and James Conner would be probably my 2 clicks. Montgomery for the bring back in the Dallas game, Conner off the board, which I think is super sharp. Conner before Miles Sanders, which is actually I'm fine with the take, to be honest. It's interesting. You don't see that.
There's a lot in this range. Dotson's still there. Even George Pickens for the Seattle bring back. I love Rachaad White, but yeah, there's lots.
What's cool too is you could also do a Dalvin Cook as a potential bring back if he lands in Miami in the Baltimore game. I'd go Montgomery personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love Montgomery regardless. My exposure is quite high. I love his touchdown upside. I think his floor, I've said this a lot on this channel, his floor this year is right here, in my opinion. Ezekiel Elliott last year, 17 touchdowns for Jamal Williams. I'm not even giving him quite close to that. I think double-digit touchdowns is absolutely on the table for David Montgomery.
Love that.
So probably Tua here. What's your thoughts if Deshaun Watson's on the board? I guess that's zero correlation.
Yeah, it's kind of a naked Watson. I would probably do it somewhere else. If Trevor Lawrence fell to us at this point, I would go like a naked Trevor Lawrence and make it work. Like, look, he fell to pick 82. It gets to a certain point where you just pick him and you figure it out later. Yeah, falling 16 picks.
Well, you could bring it back. I actually did that on another stream with Bradley Stalder. He fell about that 20 picks, whatever it was. Then we brought it back with 14 picks past ADP, Evan Ingram somehow. Yeah, and then brought in Zay Jones. So yeah, that made it hella easy to click that.
Yeah, even a Tank Bixby too is a fine click.
Yeah,
Tua's cool, especially because you said your exposure's relatively low to him. We have the bring back with Mark Andrews, which is like basically what more could you ask for? But
and in that game, you don't need any more than that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
for a double stack with the bring back, nothing like that. Yeah. For that game, I think that's enough.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want more than. I definitely don't want two pass catchers if I don't have the QB in that game, particularly on like Lamar's side.
Yeah. Unless you can somehow get Tyreek and Waddle, which is rare, does happen, but it's rare. That's the only way I'm taking 2 Miamis. I'm not reaching for Braxton Berrios. I'm not taking
Yeah. See, I think that's interesting where you could go a naked Waddle, and this is like maybe this will help people change their way of thinking. You could go Waddle and Hill and end up with Lamar, right? Mm-hmm. And basically all you need to happen is Waddle and Hill to have a huge game. Now, if that happens, it brings Tua into a huge game scenario. If Tua has a huge game, you got to think that maybe Baltimore's also playing to have a big game, playing from behind potentially. And Lamar has the chance to spike over Tua with that rushing ability, but still have Waddle and Hill finish as a top 12 receiver that week. And you could spike into the lineup that way, stacking it on the back end. I don't think it makes as much sense if your QB is Justin Herbert, right? Yeah. Because now Justin Herbert, pocket passer, he has to throw the ball to those receivers. So now those receivers are going to spike. So it doesn't make as much sense. So roster construction, even with those small nuances, I think is important.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Look at the game that they played last year, Miami and Baltimore. That scenario is exactly what happened. Lamar ran for, what was it, like a 60, 70-yard touchdown or something like that in that game. So we've seen it literally happen So it's not like, oh, there's a lot of ifs and buts in that, but no, we've literally seen it happen. So it's more than possible, obviously. But getting
Lamar,
into the, go ahead.
Lamar he could spike for 40 point week, like any week. Justin Fields had 2 of them last year.
Yeah. When they have that rushing ability, and I know that that's what everybody's saying and thinking about Anthony Richardson as well, but it's just not quite there. It took Justin Fields until his second season to get to that point. And I see that being, Justin Fields was a better overall quarterback in college than Anthony Richardson was. And we're thinking that Anthony Richardson is going to step in as a rookie and do what Justin Fields couldn't do until his second year in the NFL. I can't get behind Anthony Richardson at his ADP.
I do love Justin Fields this year.
Yeah, me too. I was drafted. He was pretty low in the big board for his ADP. My exposure to him got a little aggressive.
But now you should be drafting him even more, right? If he's fallen, which all those middle round QBs fell, but he still has that. He had more 40-point games last year than the top 3 QBs combined.
What are your thoughts here? 104 could be doing. Dak could be done.
I want 2 RBs. Definitely wanted Dylan. Robinson's gone. Starting to get a little thin here. I would have loved 2 of those RBs, Gibson and Dylan and Robinson, Dylan and Charbonnet.
Even those guys, I would have taken.
Yeah, for sure.
We could Tyler Lockett.
Definitely want Zach Charbonnet for sure. For me, we could always go a late QB. We can get Geno, we can get Purdy, we can get Ritter. It can be a 3 QB build if we had to with Purdy and Ritter. That wouldn't cost that much capital with Tua too.
I don't mind Charbonnet. Sounds like he might be the preferred pass catching back in Seattle. So I don't mind that if we're building out a Seattle stack. For me, the NFC West is a division to target as well. With the defenses in that division just for regular season. And then, the Seattle playoff schedule is not that scary either. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting too with this type of build. If we do bring in a Rashad Penny and we make the bet that week 17, maybe they're ahead on the Cardinals and they just run the clock, right? And it's just a good way to leverage other players on the field. It's a good way to leverage the Hurts teams, as well as AJ Brown and Devonta Smith teams, is having the running back, and Candyman takes our candy from us just like a baby. Should wait for
I'm all right with that, to be honest with you, but I do think that Arizona might be the worst team and the worst defense in the NFL.
Seth in the live stream says, I have a lot, in caps, a lot of Fields. Seth, one of the pounders, definitely his drafts have improved so much since the beginning of the offseason. It's insane. He posts in the Discord absolute masterpieces nowadays. Masterpieces.
Nice. You always got to be improving. That's for sure. And here's where Anthony Richardson's fallen. So that's cool. After all that,
I don't love P. Ryan. Like we could have listed P. Ryan for me as one of the fallers. Now here he does fall 9 picks, but relative to starting ADP.
What are your thoughts for Damian Harris? Maybe I could be talked into A-Chain here pretty easily.
I think P. Ryan sort of makes sense in this scenario, where we're going to need early running back points anyways. Having Zach Charbonnet, maybe this is a bet against Javonte Williams, like what we were talking about earlier. With this type of team where we go 0 RB, I think P. Ryan makes more sense than Damian Harris, who, Russian QB, also has James Cook. A couple things need to happen there where we just need one with this P. Ryan pick.
Don't hate that. I have actually been picking up. P. Ryan is falling, but I have been picking up a little more shares, probably because he is falling. That's probably why I have been clicking him a little more. I have also been correlating that Chargers game a fair amount. Yeah. The Chargers have a super cake week 15 and 16. So in order to get to that final week, again, you have to win. You have to be 1 of 16 twice to get to week 17 to even be there. So the Chargers, I am personally putting a pretty big bet on. I'm trying to get as much exposure as I can right now to that Chargers offense with Kellen Moore. And I mean, there could be something to this. Maybe not. There's something to this. But from what I've seen as far as league winning rosters, you don't see a lot of early QB teams winning, right? You see that fourth, more like fifth, sixth, even, later 7th, 8th round quarterbacks. Or double clicking, that sort of thing. Those are the teams that are winning. You're getting your high value with your wide receivers, especially maybe, 4th round running back and then a 5th round quarterback like a Justin Herbert. And that's what seems to be winning. Not that you got to completely buy into that narrative, but the proof has kind of been in the pudding a little bit with that. Last year's BBM was, Tom Brady and Daniel Jones. That was round 9 and 10, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
high profile game doesn't play with with Josh Allen and Burrow, which definitely are two elites. But I think I think the reason why you might not see a lot of those elite QB teams is because of roster construction mistakes, like spending too much capital at the QB, because it can be detrimental if you select Josh Allen and then you're going like Justin Fields, and you see a lot of teams do that. I think just like King Cap's team, where he got an elite QB with Burrow, and then he gets a falling Jalen Hurts at a value, and Jalen Hurts has that smash year where he finishes as a top 3 QB. I'm always looking for that player that is going to have that finish that is way higher than where he's going.
Yeah, and I think that's what you got to hit, obviously, to win these tournaments. Like Joe Burrow in his rookie year, Josh Allen in his the year before Joe Burrow, and then Jalen Hurts, last year.
Come on, Gino. Come on, Gino.
I would love to get.
Come on, Gino. 12 picks after ADP.
So, you got to get that quarterback that smashes, kind of in their second, third year, that type of a thing, or potentially a rookie it was the second year for Joe Burrow. So you gotta get that guy. And to me, that could be Justin Herbert this year. I really think it certainly could be with Kellen Moore coming in, who doesn't give a shit about winning football games. He just wants to score as many points as he can. And
you could pair that up with Gino. You could pair it up with Goff. You could pair it up with any of those middle round guys, Daniel Jones. And I think you're getting really crazy value. If you hit on both picks, that's how you make a super team.
Yeah. Russell Wilson.
I'd be looking to bring this Seattle game back with Jalen Warren for Pittsburgh. If he goes, I wouldn't mind going Kendre or Tank Bigsby in this range too.
I don't have much exposure to Kendre a lot. Oh, there goes Warren. Cool.
Are you making your bet on Jamal here? Jamal Williams?
I am. Yeah, I am.
Okay.
I'm buying in on Jamal Williams. Kendre hasn't even practiced yet. 3rd round guy. Kamara may or may not get suspended at all. Yeah. I don't mind Kendre Miller. Don't get me wrong. I love him as a player. And to be honest, actually, this build, this team, he does make a lot of sense, especially with where we're at right now, unless we want to pick another wide receiver.
You could sell me either way. Like, we could reach up a little bit for Algier and get that Atlanta correlation as well. Someone that should have a guaranteed role in the offense. If Miller does start the season slow, we already have one rookie that's going to have to earn a role. So I think Algier makes a lot of sense here too. It's up to you though.
I don't mind Algier. It's just he's not that pass catching guy. If we wanted to bring it with Ritter, with the Drake London, let's go Kendre, because it does make sense for the build that we're at. It makes sense for our bye weeks here.
We get early production from P. Ryan, which is nice.
Yeah, if he can hold it down with David Montgomery, we're going to need some help from our other two. We're going to have to at least be picking 6 RBs on this team. Personally, I think we're okay with at quarterback here. I'm okay with that, considering how late we got Gino.
Another roster construction point is selecting 2 players on a single offense for the reasons of pushing a low advance rate player who doesn't spike, right? So you have Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore. I think it's a good example. You're bringing in both those players. You don't have the QB. You'd be selecting Mooney basically you're making a bet on Chicago's offense. for DJ Moore, who has a bad week 16 game, and Mooney has a huge spike week, he elevates DJ Moore into week 17, and then DJ Moore takes off. Like, that would be the reasoning. Algier works like that too with London, where Algier's cheaper price, London's more expensive. If other teams have Drake London in the 4th round, that's going to hurt if he has a bad week 16. But if Algier can spike and push him along into week 17, that's where you get these low advance rate players that are more unique. Now, it doesn't work as well for like MVS, Rice, and Sky Moore, right? They're all relatively not pricey. Those teams will end up with those players if they have a bad week 16 anyways. So different ways of thinking about that scenario too, because I see a lot of mistakes with that.
Yeah, I don't hate that take at all. As like we talked about, earlier in the show with Brandon Cooks, the CeeDee Lamb Brandon Cooks thing. That could be another example of that, where Brandon Cooks is that week 17 guy that you need to win $3 million, right? And CeeDee Lamb gets you there, right? Considering the defenses that they play in weeks 15 and 16, maybe CeeDee Lamb gets you to advance to the finals, and Brandon Cooks is that guy that you have stashed. Denver's another offense in a similar vein. Detroit.
The more expensive that first player is that you're trying to advance, the more it makes sense. Because if CeeDee Lamb does have that bust of a game, if those teams don't also have Brandon Cooks, like you brought up, and Brandon Cooks has that 24-point week, that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. What are your thoughts here? I don't mind Singletary if we want to go that route.
Definitely Singletary.
Love Singletary.
It's an insta click for me here.
Yeah.
Someone that should have a role in this offense, and we need someone with an early role. Great O-line. So I definitely that click makes a lot of sense. What are you thinking about roster construction wise? We have 2 pretty strong QBs. We could bring in Noah Fant as our second tight end if you want, and this could look like a 2-7-7-2 type build.
I'm all right with a lot of things at tight end. I would have thought about Taysom Hill even right there. Tight end, I don't particularly care, especially if I get a Mark Andrews, even a TJ Hawkinson, Kelsey. If I have what I consider an elite tight end, I really don't care what I end up doing, and I'll find some correlation. So yeah, we could do Fant for correlation. We'll find something that works.
I like Rashid Shaheed in this range. DPJ has also been a faller in Best Ball Mania 4, so you're getting him at a better price right now than early drafters could. It'll depend on, is Cedric Tillman going to work his way into more of a role at the end of the season is the risk. But Tajay Spears here, I know we're starting to add a lot of rookies on this team, but we kind of backed ourselves into this corner. If you hit RB, probably be looking to target like Gus Edwards, Jeff Wilson, Tajay Spears, those types of players. What's your thoughts on Foreman being number 1 on the depth chart right now for Chicago?
I mean, let's get through this pick and I'll talk about Foreman here. What are we thinking? I don't mind
Foreman, Gainwell.
I don't mind.
I think we can wait. Yeah,
I think we can wait on RB as well. Jaden Reed.
Entirely.
Don't hate.
Anyone but Jaden Reed, probably.
Let's go Kenny G.
Okay.
And get our RB room wrapped up.
Okay.
I think that's probably wrapped up.
I'd say one more at the end personally, just because where would we spend that last pick? If we're stopping at 2 tight ends, we don't need 8 receivers.
You're right.
It would basically that we get a bonus pick because of how well we balance the team so far. We get a bonus pick. You could spend it at QB, I think would make sense, or you could spend it at running back, depending on where you think we need it the most.
Yeah, I don't mind 2-7-7-2, but as far as the Chicago Bears backfield, man, like I'm Khalil Herbert just because of his production last year. That's what I'm clicking first in order of operations. I look at it as Khalil Herbert, Deontay Foreman, and then Rashawn Johnson. It's kind of how I look at it and how I'm drafting it. I don't know, man.
I think Rashawn Johnson's the clear third down back relatively early into the season. One of the best pass blockers as well. So he's going to fit. He's probably going to get into the field sooner than most rookies that are going in this range, like Tajay and Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then this is literally something I said a few weeks ago on this show. In order of the running, it goes Herbert, Foreman, Johnson. As far as pass catching, Johnson, Herbert, Foreman is how I look at it. So,
and he's a rigorous runner too. When he gets the ball in his hands, he's not easy to bring down. Yards after contact real high. So work his way into a larger role by the end of the season. We know this is a team that's going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah, four-headed backfield with Justin Fields.
It's definitely an easy way to describe it. We still get that bring back our mini with David Montgomery and Dallas. I love that game. To even have a small piece of that game, I think is huge for every lineup. And we're actually targeting a lot of these games that I love for Week 17: Miami, Baltimore, Detroit, and Dallas. Do we have a mini with Seattle and Pittsburgh? No, not yet. In this range, I like Tajay Spears. I think he could rise. A DPJ, Tyquan Thornton, if we're going to go our last receiver. I like the Mims pick too, but
yeah, all the Mims. Yeah, he just went. I don't mind Tyquan here.
Okay.
As long as DeAndre Hopkins doesn't sign here. And to be honest, it seems less likely. It seems like it's either the Titans or the Bills or Chiefs or something like that. So
yeah, Titans are minus 300. I should have mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
They got a boost today. It's looking like they're the favorite right now, and that's a small hit to Treylon Burks right now. And I mean, I still like Chiggy where he's going. Give me Chiggy any time of the day. He's like the high upside, flashy, just all of the advanced metrics, looking like a, put the star in the fridge when you get home from school type of kid.
Where do we want to go here? Where's Fant? Fant's still ways down, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Fant's probably last round pick.
Yeah.
Which is nice for this team, because when you go Mark Andrews, sure, you can bring in one of these tight ends earlier and be done. Like, be very strong if we went like Freiermuth and Andrews. But actually, is Pittsburgh's bye week 13? Can we check that real quick?
They're bye week 6.
6. Okay. Yeah. So Freiermuth and like Andrews is probably the earliest tight end I would bring in with Mark Andrews for that type of capital. And you see people do bully tight end. It's just very gross. Chess Liam put out a stat of like, if you drafted Kelsey and Hawkinson last year, and Hawkinson went relatively late last season, around 90, I think he finished off in, you would only have gained like 36, 38 points on your Kelsey team. Yeah. And then he combined it with other tight ends that did really good last year too. And you don't gain a whole lot.
It's the same thing with quarterback. Like if you had Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow last year, Burrow would have only entered your lineup like 3 times for maybe 30, 40 points.
Edwards gets sniped. What are your thoughts on Raheem Mostert here?
I don't hate it as the pass catcher in that besides A-Chain. Either him, maybe Khalil Shakir. Do we have
I like Shakir too.
For a Tyquan bring back?
Yeah, I like Shakir.
Little mini bring back there. Mm-hmm. I think he ultimately wins that slot role there. Mm-hmm. And, we've seen Cole Beasley a couple years ago be hella efficient as a slot receiver in that offense. So
it was scary that they brought Cole Beasley back last season, though. Maybe Khalil Shakir wasn't picking it up as fast as they wanted him to, but I don't expect any surprise appearances from Mr. Beasley this season. So hopefully, I like Shakir where he's going. It's like the perfect amount of risk for a second-year player on Buffalo's offense. Like, look where we're drafting second-year players on KC's offense that had similar type years in Sky Moore.
Rookies on KC's offense. Right.
Yeah, rookies. Yeah. So, I mean, even Knox where he's going, Kincaid could completely take over the job at the end of the season, and Knox can still spike for a touchdown or two. So
and he's
in the red zone.
Knox is still going to force his way on the field because Dalton Kincaid cannot block. Dalton Kincaid might eat into Khalil Shakir. I could see that, but he's he is going to eat into Dawson Knox. I get it, but he's not a blocking tight end by any means. So He's going to keep himself on the field with that
Last pick
ability.
RBs, just to name a few of the faves here. Pierre Strong, obviously that'd be a bet on Dalvin Cook not going to the offense. Malik Davis, if you really are worried about Pollard and you don't think they're going to bring in an RB. Joshua Kelly's probably the safest person. And he still has a contingent upside being the RB number 2 over there with an injury to Eckler. You have a sneaky pick if you scroll down. I don't know if we've even hit him yet with Matt Breida playing for the Giants.
Are you not thinking Eric Gray is that guy?
I'd have Eric Gray as the pass catcher and Matt Breida is first and second down.
What do we want to do here? We're definitely going, tight end at 209.
How about the teams in front of us? How many tight ends? So they have 3, 2, 2. Who are the two? Who are the 2 for those teams?
Yeah,
Kelsey, he shouldn't be going another. He could, but there's so many tight ends in front of Fant. I wouldn't be worried. I'd just get the RB you want here.
Who are we thinking?
I like Pierre Strong, Kelly, probably my 2 clicks since Zamir White's gone.
I don't mind Pierre Strong at all. Realistically, if there's anything that happens to Ramondre Stevenson, Pierre Strong, and this is crazy, 10 yards a carry. Yeah, it's only 10 carries, but that's hyper efficient for limited workload.
Yeah. Hey, you got to find the positives, you got to find a small positive.
Well, and he is a solid pass catching back as well. And there's a lot of times where people are taking handcuffs and they're not the direct handcuff. There's going to be a pass catching guy. There's going to be a goal line guy, that sort of a thing. Pierre Strong to me is the direct handcuff to Ramondre Stevenson. So
yeah,
that's a big reason why I don't mind Pierre Strong at all either. But definitely a bit of a unique team. Tua, Geno, 0 RB, David Montgomery, Zach Charbonnet, Samaje Perine, Kendre Miller, Devin Singletary, Kenny Gainwell, Pierre Strong. We got CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, Tyquan Thornton, Khalil Shakir, Mark Andrews, and as long as we don't get sniped by some Yahoo, no Fant.
Yeah, it's looking good to me.
This is definitely a unique team, in my opinion. I highly doubt there's going to be anyone else out there that has a team built like this.
No, create masterpieces. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, pass catching back in Seattle. We get 2 pass catchers. Tua, we get the stack we got to bring back with Mark Andrews, which is probably one of the more sexy bringbacks in that Baltimore offense.
Yep. Got a little Dallas-Detroit exposure here. Love that. It would have been nice to get some sort of Pittsburgh Steeler on this team, but
Warren got sniped and it just really didn't fall our way for Pittsburgh bringbacks, which is fine. It happens.
Got Buffalo, New England. Would have been nice to get a Washington Commander as well with Ayuk, but not the end of the world as well. So, yeah, no, I like this team. It's definitely unique. It's not something that I would particularly build. So that's why I like to do stuff like this and bring people on. Wildroom didn't expect these guys to fall. Let's take a quick peek. Candyman, hey?
Chris the Candyman.
Watson, Goff. Freiermuth, there's where Freiermuth went. I love Tyler Conklin. Like your tight end room. That's a good room. Brandon Cooks, who we talked about a fair amount. Bringing back the Sean Watson with Cedric Tillman late.
Love that. Cedric Tillman, like someone that's really not being drafted a whole lot. He goes undrafted quite a bit. And if he could take over that role, maybe from DPJ by the end of the season, this could be one of those low advanced guys because he's not being drafted.
Josh Jacobs late, pick 36. We were talking about that early. Don't hate that at that point. Got sniped on T-Law and Dak. Yeah, there was a quarterbacks fell in this room, that's for sure. It was definitely an interesting one, but yeah, that's our draft. I dig it. I'm gonna go ahead and name this guy. There we go. Let's name this sucker.
Chris has got sniped on T-Law, Dak. Come on, got sniped on T-Law, bro. So I don't want to hear that. He went like 16 picks after ADP.
Yeah, that's
You
not
had
getting
your
Schneid done.
chance. You had your chance for T-Law, my friend.
No doubt. So there we go. There's our team. I love it. I'm real happy with the way that looks. Again, it's definitely, I think, super unique and not something that I would expect anyone else to be drafting. So
Hell yeah, love that.
Yeah, man. So that's it. I think we quit just on time. Got you out of here as I promised. So wanna thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Like I said, everyone go give Pat and the Dog Pound a follow, and on YouTube as well. YouTube, Twitter, all the verses, and come back next week. We'll have maybe another guest. I might be solo. We'll see. But Pat, awesome. Give a shout out, give a plug to whatever you want. I know you got your Patreon and your Discord, so plug away.
Yeah, we're almost full for the Patreon League, the Founders Pounders League, 1 away. So that's really exciting there. It just allows us to do so much extra, and you gotta support your favorite content creators. So go ahead, support Cody as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. Do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. If I have a guest next week, awesome. If not, it'll just be me solo, but that'll be all right. So come back next week. Like I said, like and subscribe. Motto on Off the Schneid: if you're afraid to be wrong, you will never be right. So don't be afraid to be wrong, peeps. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Wrong all the time.